Hey everyone, Jonathan here, and I recently did a video highlighting MCU movies that have never had sets made for them, but in today's video, I thought we'd zoom the microscope in a little closer and look at MCU villains that have never had a minifig made of them. Despite over 10 years of LEGO Marvel existing and the majority of MCU films getting sets to go with them, there are a surprising amount of LEGO MCU villains that have not been made as minifigs, so let's start breaking down the list starting at the very early days of the MCU. The Incredible Hulk, The Abomination. Incredible Hulk was a film that came out before LEGO had the license to do Marvel sets, and as the MCU has progressed on, it's no secret that it isn't exactly the most popular film in the series. We did get a Mega Block set back in the day when the film came out in 2008, and of course Abomination has appeared in the LEGO Marvel video games, but we've never got him as a real physical minifigure, and considering that this movie hasn't really gained much popularity over the years, I doubt we'll ever get one at this point. Iron Man 2 Justin Hammer. While 2017 did give us a comic book style Justin Hammer in the Detroit Steel Strikes set, the MCU version of the character has yet to be made. On one hand, I sort of get it, since it's just a dude in a suit and doesn't add a ton of play value to anything, quite like his Detroit Steel version does with all that comic book goodness, but on the other hand, considering how well-liked Justin Hammer is in the MCU, and that LEGO has gone back and revisited Iron Man 2 on a few occasions now, I do kind of think that he'd be a great addition to get. I don't know if we'll get him eventually, but he is simple enough to just make as a custom with parts you have in your collection, so even if LEGO did give us an official Justin Hammer, he'd probably just reuse existing parts anyway. That makes this not too big of a loss to not have at this point. Thor, the Frost Giants. While I don't think there's many people out there losing sleep over a lack of LEGO Frost Giants existing, I still think they'd be a cool addition to our collections, no pun intended. After the success of the Surtur battle set and how surprising it was to get that 7 years after Ragnarok hit theaters, I suppose anything is possible at this point, so hey, who knows. The Avengers, The Other. I feel like a lot of people forget about The Other given his hooded appearance and lack of significant screen time, but technically we've still not gotten him as a minifig outside of what we saw in a video game at one point. Thankfully, he'd be pretty easy to make as a purist custom since we have all these extra Chitauri minifigs LEGO has given us over the years, so while he was technically never made as a real figure, it's not that much of a loss if you ask me. Thor the Dark World, Malekith. Okay, this is where the list starts to get really wild. While Thor the Dark World is one of the weaker MCU entries, I feel like one set from it could actually do well, especially if it were something Asgard related like the Bifrost or something similar that could serve as a good throwback set and include Malekith and maybe some other Thor characters. That being said, I think his design would lend very well to a minifigure version as we've seen translated into video game form, but unfortunately, given this film's unpopularity, I feel like the video game is the closest we'll ever get to seeing the figure actually exist. Doctor Strange, Caecilius. Crazy enough, Doctor Strange had no villains from the first film made into LEGO form. The first and most obvious would be Caecilius, who would have been a great addition, and the only set from this film ever to be released, like I said, didn't come with him. I actually feel like he's got a pretty good chance of being included in the LEGO set someday, just because this movie was well received. It's very toyetic in the sense that LEGO could go back and revisit it, although the fact that we didn't get him in the big Sanctum Sanctorum kind of limits options of where he could come out. For some reason, I just feel like this is one that would make a lot of sense as we progress through the MCU and the Infinity Saga of LEGO going back and revisiting old movies. That being said, technically, we also have never gotten Dormammu as a minifig, who's also a villain, so he should be on this list, but I literally don't know how you would translate this into minifig form. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Ego. The lack of an Ego minifigure is actually what inspired the entire idea for this video in the first place. I think it's truly remarkable that LEGO didn't make Ego during the entire Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 set's run, but did make Aisha, who was, at the time, a very minimal character in the MCU, and we also got Taserface in that wave, who was an even more minor villain. We didn't even get Ego. It's so crazy to me. As time has moved on, I really can't envision a way for LEGO to make Ego as a minifigure in a place that it would make sense, so sadly, I think this was a huge missed opportunity that probably won't ever come to be. Darn. Spider-Man Homecoming, The Tinkerer. Spider-Man Homecoming gave us 2 LEGO sets, of which they included Shocker and Vulture, but we didn't actually get The Tinkerer. It was a nice assortment of villains to get, but sadly, not getting the Tinkerer in the mix has to place him on this list. I can certainly understand why. He's not the most exciting, but as we look back on the MCU, he is still missing indeed. Imagine how cool a set would be with Vulture's lair with the Vulture, Tinkerer, Shocker, and homemade suit Spidey. If only. That would be an awesome set. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Sonny Birch. We only got one set for the Ant-Man sequel, which, considering it was a $20 set, it's a miracle we got 3 exclusive minifigs at all. Of course, those were Ant-Man, the Wasp, and Ghost, which were perfect for the film at the time. Still, when we're looking at missing villains, we have to acknowledge that we never got Sonny Birch. Just like Justin Hammer, he's just a guy in a suit, so he's easy enough to make on our own as a purist custom, but for the completeness of this list, I figured he has to be included. Captain Marvel, Yon-Rogg, and the Supreme Intelligence. Captain Marvel actually got 3 sets back in the day. One was the retail set with the prototype Quinjet, the other was a polybag with Nick Fury and Kree suit Captain Marvel, and the other was a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive limited to only 1,500 copies ever made. Still, none of those sets included the main villains of the movie, those being Yon-Rogg and the Supreme Intelligence. I honestly cannot see LEGO ever going back to make Captain Marvel sets again, but a Yon-Rogg minifig would look pretty dang cool if they did. Black Widow, Dreykov. Just like Justin Hammer and Sonny Birch earlier, the guy in a suit Dreykov wasn't made for either of the Black Widow movie tie-in sets, and again, I don't think anyone's too upset over this, but he has to be on the list for completeness. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, Kang the Conqueror. Right up there with Ego for me, it's a travesty that we never got a Kang the Conqueror minifig. In fact, we only got one LEGO set for Ant-Man Quantumania, and that was the Giant Man construction figure, which, dare I say, might be the worst single-set tie-in for a MCU movie to date. The set didn't come with any minifigs, and given how poor this film was received, the Jonathan Majors controversy and firing, and the complete redirection of the MCU away from Kang altogether, I have to say, I think it'll be a long time before LEGO even entertains the idea of making a Kang minifig, and if they do, it would almost certainly be comic book based, and definitely not MCU based. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, The High Evolutionary. The Guardians Volume 3 sets we did get were admittedly pretty awesome, but in retrospect, it's crazy to me that of the 3 Guardians of the Galaxy movies that got LEGO sets, 2 of them didn't include their main villains. In the case of Volume 3, I do sort of understand because these are kids' toys at the end of the day, and the High Evolutionary is literally an animal torturer, but still. His design was so cool, and it's really a shame we didn't get him as a real minifig. The Marvels. Quick, if you can tell me the name of the villain from the Marvels without looking it up, you get a bonus point. Did you get it? Well, it's Dar-Benn, and she didn't get an official minifig either. I actually have a conspiracy theory about this. Okay, so we got one set for the Marvels, and it was super overpriced for the pieces included. Basically $90 for only 420 pieces and 3 minifigs. But we also know that LEGO sets the prices first, then the designers have to come up with a model to fit the pricing. Well, the Marvels was delayed in production and rewritten multiple times, so my little conspiracy theory is that there was another set designed initially that perhaps had Dar-Benn or even more characters in it, or maybe even a small side build too, but LEGO was told to shift gears due to the rewrites and reshoots, and by the time things settled in, LEGO was too far along off of the course to correct, so we got what we did with a price point that was fixed at way too high. That's just a theory of mine, and not to get too sidetracked, but at the end of the day, Dar-Benn is still on the no-villain minifig list. Deadpool and Wolverine, Cassandra Nova, or anyone from this film. Finally, we have Cassandra Nova from Deadpool and Wolverine, and this one I have to give a pass to, though, because unlike the majority of films on this list, this movie didn't actually get any LEGO products made for it whatsoever, and LEGO did have the license to do so, they just chose not to. It's hard to complain about not getting Cassandra when we didn't even get Deadpool or Wolverine from the movie, so yeah, I guess we just gotta pray that we get something from this movie someday, however unlikely that may be due to the adult nature of this movie. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and bring this video to a close. Let me know if there's anyone you think I missed, and most importantly, let me know which of these minifigs you hope LEGO will make first, if they ever make any of them. That being said, there are some notable things that I did leave off this list, namely the MCU TV shows like the Disney Plus shows. We've only ever gotten sets for What If, and with What If, there's like a different villain in every episode, so that's almost unfair. especially when those villains have been released in other sets, so I'm not really sure how we could do What If. And basically, no other Disney Plus show has any villain that's had anything made for it that I can think of off the top of my head. So let me know what you guys think. What would be awesome would be to get something like Infinity Ultron, but again, with no Disney Plus content being made into Lego sets for the most part, I just don't know if that's ever going to be possible. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Be sure to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video.